Looks like we got a few eyes in here. Hello, everybody. Let's see. Can the school district turn away a process server with packages for the teachers? I don't know, Cindy. That's a good question. That's I'm gonna have to default to Warhamster or Doug on that one. I'll go for.
Yeah, that was quick.
The hamster's here.
I was in that waiting room for almost a full second.
Almost a full second. There was a question in the chat. I don't know if you know the answer to this. Cindy asked, can a school district turn away a process server with a package for the teachers?
Boy, I tell you, I'm thinking about that. You know, there's some things you can and can't do on school property, but like during class or something like that. But I would imagine you could serve. You can serve most people at work, can't you?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose, but you still have a. I mean, technically speaking, the security at the school or whoever at the school can restrict your ability to get to the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just walk around on a campus. But I mean, you can certainly wait out in the teacher's parking lot as long as it's not a security issue.
Right. So I guess the proper answer, can a school district turn away a process server? Probably. Probably. That's my guess. But
I'm just going to get myself.
Warhamster is. And hello, Michelle. How are you? You've been looking forward to the class all day?
I've been looking forward to the class for 2 weeks. I missed this last week.
I know.
I didn't get my Constitution fix on Tuesday or Thursday.
Hi there, it's Ella from Credit National Assist, and I'm just following back up with your online request for getting some financial help.
Yeah, I didn't make an online request looking for financial help, but hey, thank you anyway.
Was that a voicemail?
Yeah, some spammer left me a voicemail saying that they responding to my online request for financial help. Well, I didn't actually ask for any financial help from an online request.
It's funny how that happens. And if you need a financial help and didn't call me, that would be a very, very disappointing.
Well, you wouldn't be able to help me financially. You might be able to help me with financial advice, but not financial assistance.
I thought that's what they were talking about.
No, financial advice, or I'm sorry, financial assistance. I don't need much financial assistance. Thank you, though.
Do I look a little blurry on YouTube?
Yeah, but so do I.
Yeah, you do.
And I'm not really sure why. We've got 13 people with their eyeballs on us and only 2 people in the chat.
I see
What's
14
up?
on my end.
Okay, so identify yourselves. I'm barking orders and I don't mean to be.
But let's get that poll back up there.
Okay. Are you new here?
I was out and about for about 2 hours today, picking up some yard signs from Joseph for the Peck for Sheriff campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And so being out of the house for 2 hours, I get back and I'm greeted by 108 text messages, something like 24 on Signal, and 57 emails on my main email, and I haven't even checked the other 2.
Yep. CC, Conservative Cowboys here. Beverly's here. Darren is here. Hello, Darren. I'm going to shoot off an email to Wayne for when are you available?
This week, probably. I mean, it's tough, man. I'm stretched so thin this week.
I know, but we still need to do it.
Yeah. I might almost prefer a weekend, to be honest with you.
He's not. That's not going to work.
Yeah, you already asked him about that?
No, but I don't want to do a weekend.
It's not 5 o'clock. You can't have a drink yet.
But I can have a drink whenever the hell I want. Hello, GD. Hello, Chris. If you guys wonder why I kind of like look all over the place, why my eyes aren't like focused on the camera, I have 4 big 27-inch screens. I have one here, 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 and here. So if that gives you an idea as to why my eyes kind of wander from time to time, now you know.
Yeah, I've got 3 other screens as well, but I don't have them hooked up right now. But I need to get them. I need to fix that this week.
Hello, Teresa. I love that. Hello. And
SCOTUS opinion on Roe versus Wade leak. Well, it's the proper ruling. It should be a state's issue. That's the first part. The second one, it's pretty fun.
I think the most important component there is the fact that it got leaked.
Well, yeah, that's
a big deal.
Yeah. Well, you've already seen my opinion of that in our group text, but yeah, that is a big friggin' deal, and I'm wondering if they'll actually be allowed to investigate it.
Oh well, they will. They'll find it. Word on the street that I'm hearing is that it was Sotomayor's office.
I heard that word on the street too, and I've also seen that debunked. There's a gentleman who works in one of the other gals, Democrat gals' office. He was while he was at Harvard Law, he was criticizing Harvard Law for endorsing Kavanaugh. So he is definitely the activist type. That's the top candidate at this point.
Well, at some point in time, it's going to be found out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It will come out.
So, well, you never know. They've been able to cover up some other stuff. But I tell you, the funnier part is, let's talk about the timing. You know who spoke in front of them?
Mules?
You know who spoke in front of Emily's List's annual event last night? Kamala Harris, keynote speaker. Uh-huh. That's the biggest pro-abortion NGO there is. Just so happened to coincide with this news breaking. No coincidences whatsoever. They're going to try to turn the election into to be all about sexism and transgender phobia and all that stuff. That's what they're going to try to make this election on, because they cannot win on a single issue.
The more they push this crap, the more people are going to reject it. I don't get it. I do get it, but I don't get it.
Yeah, but it fires up their base, and they can use it as their excuse to steal the election. That's kind of what the groups I've been talking to have been saying, and that seems to make a bit of sense.
Hello, Monica from PA, and Teresa and Larry.
Hey, Teresa, I think who leaked it does matter, because if it was a clerk acting on their own, that's one thing. Who did they coordinate with? But second of all, if the clerk coordinated with their justice, we've got a major issue.
In the
So
history of the Supreme Court, not one case has never occurred ever in the history of the Supreme Court.
Yep.
This is very big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is a very, very big deal.
But we do need to find out who the leaker was. Absolutely have to make sure it's not a sitting justice, because if they are, they need to be disbarred. Whoever did needs to be disbarred, and probably prosecuted.
Agreed.
But it does show you that they will, the rules don't apply to them. They'll do anything to win. And you can't really blame them, because if they lose and the truth of everything they've been doing ever does get out, they're not going to see a whole lot of open fields for a long time.
Mm-mm.
So
Hello,
their lives.
Gloria.
So let's see. I talked to Doug yesterday, and I'm betting he will be on time today.
We'll see.
But I'm not putting major stakes up to back that bet.
I have no money to wager on that front. Smart money is that he's late.
Yeah, I'm going out on a limb here. I get it. Hey, I don't know if I sent this to you yet, but I'm sending it to you right now. Hopefully you can make this.
Not sure, Monica. Will they do anything about the leak is the question. Still nothing on the stolen election, which is true.
Well, this particular case, this is the biggest issue John Roberts has ever had to deal with. And I don't think he can take it. I don't think he can just let this pass. Yeah, this is one of those.
Teresa says, yeah, I get that. Talking about the importance of the leak. I just don't want the whole talk to be about who leaked it. The magnitude of the subject matter of the case is important. They have been allowed to do whatever. We have to hold them accountable, and this is an opportunity since it's already been covered by the media. Yeah, I will say that I am just absolutely thoroughly enjoying the liberal salty tears that are flowing.
I watched CNN and MSNBC for like 3 hours last night, and I had a lot of fun. They've got some really silly legal theories on the left. Some of those pundits that come on there, I don't think they ever went to law school. Or maybe they did, and that's why they're so ridiculous.
That is a distinct possibility.
Of course, there's also the, every single time they want to change the news cycle, they had this thing ready to go. This decision was written in February, so they've been sitting on it. So it was timed. But, they want to change the news cycle. First thing that popped into my head is maybe Putin's about to declare victory. They want to change.
He
that
already
subject
won.
pretty quick.
By the way, did you read any of the comments on the glitch?
I did.
How recent?
This morning.
Have you read any this afternoon?
Nope. Do I want to?
You should. There's a lot of people that were like, man, you guys should just keep it the three of you. You guys are doing great. And a lot of people said that they loved it without the interruptions.
I saw that this morning. Of course, you and I still probably found a way to interrupt each other once or twice.
Yeah, but it wasn't like constant interruptions over and over and over. Sorry, I'm not really holding back.
Darren, yeah. I try to actually watch about 5 to 10 minutes of MSNBC and CNN every day. I just want to know what the other guys are saying. It's like one of the first websites I go to every morning is Media Matters, because I think they set the narrative for the whole news cycle that day. So get up knowing what your opponents are going to say, you can figure out how to combat it, because those conversations are going to come up every single day, because that's what their followers do. They take their cues and march with them. Yeah, Lisa, that's a really good question about whether Speaker of the House should be going to other countries. I've always questioned, we had when John McCain was over in the Ukraine helping them do their color revolution. Is that what a sitting senator should be doing? I don't recall seeing that in the Constitution. Yeah, they can say it had a legislative purpose, but I think it's a pretty weak argument, to be honest with you.
Now he's saying that he didn't get the link.
She sent it out this morning,
I know.
and he was copied on the same email I was, and to both of his email addresses too. So he doesn't even have that excuse. You actually did a good job, Ron. Good boy. I'm reading those comments right now, and we should not. We should be speaking to our audience.
There's Audra.
Audra's here?
No, I'm looking at the text you just sent over.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you think you'll be able to make that
When is it?
Saturday?
No.
That's too bad.
Dude, San Diego politics are not on my. I'm going to do as much as I can to help.
With the San Diego-
I'm going to do everything I can to help Jonathan.
Yeah, Darren, I do agree with that. Foreign policy is conducted by the executive branch. Congress has a role to play legislatively and for oversight, but that's not what they're doing. There's absolutely no oversight going on in Ukraine, just the opposite. Matter of fact, I don't know, what was that stupid act they tried to accuse General Flynn of? The for interfering with foreign policy? The Logan Act. Not sure if that applies to sitting congressmen, but not real crazy about that.
Uh-oh. His settings are a little bit ghosty. He looks like he's May the 4th. May the 4th be with you.
I haven't
better.
changed anything.
Well, he definitely looks like Anakin Skywalker as he's like fading into the background.
Yeah,
of
I
the
know. I
woods.
see it. I haven't changed anything. I don't know why it's doing it.
We've got Phantom Doug with us today. The Wraith.
Hang on. Let's try this.
Ooh, there we go. That's better. A little bit better.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, the background's a little bit sketchy, but he's not Phantom Doug anymore.
I miss Phantom Doug already.
Oh, stop.
Throw stuff at him, it goes right through him.
See, I get the background
okay.
going.
So the problem you got going on, Doug, is you don't have enough light.
Well, I've got the window open, my light on. I actually have more light than usual.
I'm just saying you don't. Well, the light is directed at places that it's not.
It's nothing has changed. I haven't moved the lights around. Nothing
Okay.
has changed.
I'm just telling you, you don't have the. My experience, the issue that we've got there is your lights. What you need is the lights to light up the background behind you.
Yeah, no,
And
I
then-
understand how it works. And
Yeah.
I've used the exact same lighting each time, and it didn't do this before. Suddenly it is, and I have literally changed nothing.
Okay.
So I don't know why it's doing it.
Okay. Well, we can survive this because you're not Phantom Doug right now.
Okay. Phantom.
I think
Doug.
we could have survived Phantom Doug if we had to.
You know, it never fails, man. It's always me. It's having these difficult. I told you, if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. I swear. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Enough of my moaning and groaning and complaining.
Hello, Tracy E.
It's good to see you guys. I know nothing was changed because I haven't been home. And nobody else has been in here. It's good to see you. Yeah, you can hear me. Beverly says, we can hear them okay. Hey, that's all I care about is if they hear me. I mean, it doesn't matter how I look, right? I used to do these Constitution classes right after work in Temecula at a gun shop, and often I would get there right after work. I'd be all grubby, have my ball cap on, and apologize for how I looked. And I'm like, we don't care what you look like. What we want is in your head. So,
Well, I care about what you look like.
then just for you, I'm gonna start doing stuff like this, just to,
Exactly. See, Tracy says poltergeists. Well, let's get her started, gentlemen.
yeah.
It is today is Tuesday, May the 3rd, 2022, and we are in Article 4, talking about
tail end of
territories,
it.
Republican form of government, and amendments.
Yeah, which is Article 5, but I have a feeling we're going to get there, so I decided to add that to it.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Good to see you. Actually, it's really weird today because normally when I leave the class,
I'm
I get
covered.
here in the
Doug.
nick of time. I had more than enough time today, but then I couldn't find the link. But you said, well, I sent this morning. Man, I had like 50 emails since you sent that.
I'm covered.
You're covered?
I have all 3 versions.
Well, there's more than that, but we'll count those. I like this one. I've always used this one. It comes from the National Center of Constitutional Studies.
That's the guy. That was Skousen's deal, wasn't it?
Right, Cleon Skousen, exactly. And he used to teach Constitution classes in his garage.
Yes.
But his lesson plan was a little bit different than mine. Rather than going line by line through the Constitution, he had 25 principles he went over. And that eventually became the book, 5,000 Year Leap. So, but anyway, so we're in Article 4. We have talked about Section 1, 2, and part of 3. We're about halfway through Section 3 in Article 4. So if you have this pocket Constitution, it's at the bottom of page 14. If you're looking at your pocket Constitution or online or whatever you're looking at, and it's not...
By the way, you know what? Here, that's actually a good idea. Let me do that today. Let me do that. 1 second. I decided. Remember, we discussed the option of doing something a little bit different. Let's see. Constitution of the United States. Ooh. I don't really like how this layout is, but
Fortunately for you, we're all very patient.
yeah, I don't like this. This is we're gonna have to do something a little bit different here. That's just a little bit too much HTML coding gone awry.
Tracy, you're funny. Did I bring enough olives for the rest of the class? Perhaps. Maybe. It's a pretty big jar.
We are in Article 4.
Article 4, Section 3, second paragraph.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here we are. So I'm going to share my screen. So we're going to try something a little bit different, guys. We're just going to do some of the make it a little bit more engaging for you. So this is going to, or this is the text. Let's see, how do I make it bigger? There we go. We're in Article 4. You said Article 4, Section 3?
Article 4, Section 3, second paragraph, where it says the Congress
Okay.
shall have power to dispose.
There we go.
And go.
Go.
The Congress shall have the power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. So, territory or other property, like a District of Columbia, originally, that was the idea here, is Congress makes all the rules and regulations for any territory. Now, get back to Article 1, Section 8. What properties and territories can the federal government own? If they own it, if it's their territory, be it a territory or land or Marine base, Navy base, whatever, military base, the Congress makes the rules and regulations for that property. But remember, in Article 1, Section 8, in order to own property, at least with the states, that you have one of two ways, either through treaty, spoils of war, something like that, or Article 1, Section 8, through the purchase with the consent of the state legislature for the purpose of needful buildings. So, for example, San Diego Naval Base down there at 32nd Street. That land should have been and probably was purchased by the federal government from the state of California. The legislature said, yes, we're willing to make that purchase, consent, for the purpose of needful buildings. We got, various military buildings there, plus the docks and all that for the ships. So it's land being used. The reason why it's needful buildings is we don't want the federal government just holding state land willy-nilly. It has to be for a purpose. So now then I have to ask questions like, well, gosh, I wonder if national parks are constitutional. No. They took that land. And there's no, and except for maybe the information office, there's no, it's not for needful buildings, not for the federal government's authorized use. But anyway, any property that the federal government does own, control, territory, district, park, whatever, once they are in possession, once it is their property, Congress has the power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting those properties belonging to the United States. That's what Article 4, Section 3, second paragraph says. So these properties don't have their own governments. Well, then that is where now the District of Columbia becomes an interesting case, because originally Congress made all the rules and regulations for the District of Columbia. It is a seat of government. That 10 by 10 square, originally that's what it was. That is federal property. That is United States property. But the problem was federal property is not supposed to have necessarily a permanent residency. There are going to be those on a military base or they're stationed there. There are going to be those who are politicians at the seat of government that are going to be there when they're working, but that's not going to be their permanent residence. That's not going to be where they're from. It's a seat of military, a seat of government, whatever. So in Washington, D.C., as we've talked about before, but I want to go over this one more time, is a population did grow in this district that Congress is making the rules over because it's a United States property, federal property. And as time passes, this population grows. Who is this population? The population are escaped slaves. As we move forward through the 19th century and the abolition movement's doing its thing, the abolition movement touches Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C., through Congress, outlaws slavery within the district. The thing is, that district is not a part of a state. It is federal district that's in between Virginia and Maryland. Virginia and Maryland at the time were still slave states, as was Delaware, as was Kentucky, and so forth. All the surrounding areas are all slave states. But then you got this little 10 by 10 square, says, hey, no slavery here. You're an escaped slave. You're heading north. You happen upon Washington, D.C. If you're going to go further north into a free state, are you going to keep on going? Probably not. You're already safe. But there's not supposed to be a population. Well, the politicians there have no problem with having people there to shine their shoes and make their beds and wait their tables. And the escaped slave, looking for a way to take care of themselves, have no problem doing those things. So this population begins to grow in Washington, D.C. Congress, though, is making the rules regarding Washington, D.C. still. But technically, there's not supposed to be a population. So Congress decides after the war between the states, you know what? Even though we make the rules, we make the laws for this district, constitutionally, that's our job, according to Article 4, Section 3. It's also not cool to have all these people living someplace and have no representation. They don't have any self-government. They don't have a city council. They're just at the whims of Congress. They got, they have no representation in Congress. Washington, D.C. is not a state. They don't have any representation locally. Congress is making all the rules. So there's no mayor. There's no city council. We need to give these people the opportunity to have representation at some type of level. So in 1871, an act was passed declaring Washington, D.C. to be a city. And what they did is they took that 10 by 10 square and they took some other areas. They asked Virginia and Maryland, of course, in this case. The land was ceded as the original land was. I think it still should have been purchased with the consent, but that's beside the point. And so the townships of Washington, Georgetown, they gave up their charter as cities and they became a part of this new federal city. That's not in Virginia. It's not in Maryland. It's now bigger than the original 10 by 10 square of the district. And it became the city of Washington, D.C. in an incorporated city, or as the Act of 1871 says. And boy, I get nervous going in this route because I know what's going to happen in the chat room.
Just put it on there. Like, let
hang on, we're
let
ready.
the debate rage.
Hang on, let me hang on. Yeah, debate rage. Let me hang on to this, to my armrest of my chair for the ride. A municipal corporation. Municipal corporation. The word municipal corporation means it's a city that can take care of its own. It has its own government, so on and so forth. It's been incorporated. The word corporation is being used in that manner. It does not mean necessarily that it's a corporation in a business sense as we see today. In fact, I've gone through the Act of 1871 line by line, and there's nothing there that tells me otherwise. Now, that said, Warhamster brought something up to me not too long ago that also made a lot of sense. When did corporations become something in the United States? The early 1900s, was it, Warhamster?
I believe like 1911, 1912, the very first U.S. corporation was U.S. Steel. And that was also done by Sullivan and Cromwell, who I'm about to type into the chat about, because he was talking about Conservative Cowboy. He was talking about Pearl Harbor and how we took that. But yeah, it was before that, they called them trusts. And the foundations were created at the same time, the tax-free foundations, the corporation. All that stuff was as a result of the antitrust legislation from the previous decade. that didn't actually break up the trust. They just let them reform into these new entities called corporations. And a corporation really is designed to reduce liability for the owners. And I think it's a terrible idea. If owners actually had to face liability for their own actions, corporations would probably be a little bit more responsible.
They'd be worried about all those lawsuits.
And we'd also see the legal system change quite a bit because corporations would do everything they could to lobby to have actually reasonable tort reform. We could probably fix a lot of things by getting rid of corporations.
Now, here's the reason why I bring that up. There is a theory out there that the Act of 1871 made the United States or Washington, D.C., or both, a corporation, like a business corporation. The word corporation being used in that act was not meant to make it a business corporation, but a municipal corporation, a city that is incorporated, that can take care of its own business. And for those who think, no, it also means business. We didn't have business corporations until 1911, 1912, like Warhamster was talking about. So how is it that the United States became a corporation before there was such thing as corporations in the United States? Matter of fact, wouldn't they have called it a trust if that was the case? Just saying.
Yeah, there was such a thing as a corporation and incorporation in Britain and other parts of Europe at the time, but America had no such entity.
All right. So there you go. All right, let's continue. So Congress shall have power to dispose of, make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory and property belonging to the United States. And this one's interesting, and we're going to examine it a little bit. And nothing in this Constitution shall be construed as to prejudice any claims of the United States or of any particular state. All right, now, what that's saying is the states. Well, let me back up. Have you ever seen early maps of the United States where, the western edge of the country is the Mississippi River, but the territories really haven't been formed yet? And it's like the western borders of some of these original 13 states just kind of arbitrarily start heading west. And it's the borders of the states. We don't see territory or Mississippi territory or Alabama territory. We see Georgia heading west, South Carolina with this little line heading west. I've got the image somewhere, but I'm not going to put it on the screen just yet because it'd take too long. But to find it, because the territories belong to the states, it was the states that made the claims to the territories, not the federal government. Louisiana Purchase changed everything, but prior to that, during the writing of the Constitution, the states, as individual entities, they had their own claims for territory. They expected to expand as a state, not to be broken up into other states. And this is saying, hey, just because Congress has the power to make the rules and regulations respecting territories, it's their territories, not the state's territories. And what's written here does not prejudice any claims of the United States, or of any particular state. So what is the state? The United States is of the United States. What is of the states is the states. And this is not prejudicing. This is not saying that one has to be the other. It's just saying that this is what they're trying to say. It's just saying that if it is a United States territory, Congress has that authority. If it's a claim of a state, then the state worries about it. That's basically what it's saying. Okay, Section 4, Article 4, Section 4. This is going to take some time to talk about only because it's so relevant, in my opinion, today.
And let me just warn the audience that if I storm out of the room in a huff, it's because of this section right here. This is one of the most maddening parts of the whole Constitution for me.
It's one of the most maddening parts.
Oh, yeah.
The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government. What is a republican form of government? A republican form of government is what we originally had, where there's checks and balances. There are mechanisms that provide a balance and a proper distribution of power. It does not say that the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a democratic form of government or a
What? We
socialist
don't have a
form of government.
democracy?
That's the one right there.
He's ready to storm out of the room as I'm speaking. And we're going to all blame Ron.
Fox News told me. But Fox News says that we have a democracy.
Yeah, so does Hillary Clinton. I don't believe her either.
I've even heard Trump say it.
Yeah, they all need to stop saying it because that word democracy, that D word, does not show up anywhere in here. I looked, can't find it.
You know, it's funny. It's not in the Declaration either,
It's amazing.
or
how
the
that
Articles
works.
of Association, or the Articles of Confederation. Isn't that
0
something?
for 4.
Interesting. Well, and when they were talking about democracy, and we get this argument that democracy and republic are really the same thing, and they're not. But we had this discussion last night in my Chino Constitution class. We're in a different part of the Constitution, but the idea of republic versus democracy came up. And I said something that confused somebody. And so I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to clarify it to explain why she was confused. I said, the problem is we're becoming a democracy. We are more a democracy today than we ever were. The person who started it was Andrew Jackson. When Alexis de Tocqueville wrote his book, Democracy in America, I was bothered by the fact he said democracy in America because we're supposed to be a republic. But what he meant was democracy was taking form in America. And he writes in his book, Democracy in America, how history shows how dangerous democracies are, how volatile they are. But somehow in America, as they're trying to move towards democracy from their republic, and he says in his book, hey, they're abandoning a perfectly good republic for democracy. And it's not good. But somehow, right now, it's working in America. Democracy in America is working. Why? How is it that what's supposed to destroy a country hasn't destroyed America yet? And he goes on to explain it's because America is a virtuous country. The strength is in her churches because America is good. Heck, even a monarchy works if the country is moral and full of virtue and the ruler is too. But the problem is the moment you get the people and the ruler heading in an unvirtuous direction, tyranny sets in. The best way to guard against all of that as that begins to happen is a republic. Democracy, like any other system, becomes an oligarchy. It deteriorates into a tyranny when it's not a virtuous system. And guess what? We have something called human nature. And human nature usually doesn't work out too well. There's a bumper sticker I absolutely love out there. It says, the more I get to know people, the more I love my dogs. People are the problem, right? People, human nature. And so we're becoming this democracy, and we're practically a democracy at this point because we've lost all of our Republican mechanisms. And the woman says, whoa, wait a second. I thought you said we're a republic, not a democracy. Now you're saying we're turning into a democracy. Said, and so now here's my clarification. According to this, we're a republic. When we stick to this, we're a republic, but we're not sticking to it. And so the mechanisms of a republic are being removed, and the institution of democracy is being expanded. So we are becoming a democracy. But notice it's been this long, slow process. And the way to help them understand this is sort of like, it's sort of like when you going through that process to, do the addictomy. You don't just instantly do it, right? Starts with the hormone blockers. Right now, I guess they got the Republic blockers going.
Doug,
it's a transition. It takes time. What?
Are we a constitutional republic or a federal republic?
We are a constitutional republic with a federal government.
Thank you. Both are correct. Lisa, you win a prize.
The word federal, it comes from federation. We're a federation of states. That's where the word federal comes from. You could say federal republic, but really constitutional republic is a proper term. But we have a federal government.
Yeah, I think both are absolutely correct.
Yeah, I think so. Now, the whole thing I'm trying to get at here is we're in this transition. See, it makes me want to write a book called Transamerica.
Oh,
But
that
anyway.
would not be good. That would not be good.
Pretty sure that one's already been written.
All kinds of people will be buying it thinking one thing, and then they get a whole different thing. It'd be that right there is hilarious. But my point is creeping incrementalism. They knew they couldn't just instantly turn this into what it's become because there was obstacles. So this has been this slow process, but we are becoming a democracy, and we're not supposed to be. It's bad. Our biggest problem is democracy. I remember when Trump was president, New York Times had this headline, Trump is ruining our democracy. And my response was, yeah, I hope so. We need to get back to being a republic. That's our need. And it says the United States shall guarantee to every state a Republican form of government. So now that not only should the United States be a Republican form of government, but each state as well. And the United States government is supposed to guarantee that each state remains that way. All right, so let's go over some of these mechanisms real quick. So mechanisms, checks and balances, multiple constituencies. And what I mean by that is there's going to be a suffrage from more than one part of the system. The people is one suffrage, like for example, the federal level, House of Representatives, one suffrage. The other suffrage is the states, and their suffrage was satisfied in the Senate. And they had their suffrage, their equal suffrage in the Senate. At the state level, Republican form of government, once again, checks and balances, and then a multiple constituencies. In California, instead of a state house, we have an assembly. So the California State Assembly is voted in by the people democratically, voice of the people. That's the constituency. The state Senate, all the states used to do this, used to be not voted in by the people, but appointed by the counties. That was the county's voice. They were the constituency, multiple constituencies. Why is that important? Because anytime that you have the same powers doing something, you have problems. So you want every issue, everything to have natural checks and balances and a different way of looking at things, multiple ways of looking at it. It's like our lawmaking process at the federal level before the 17th Amendment and before our vice presidents became, I don't know, the gopher for the president, is we really had three voices in the lawmaking process. Now we have one. Two houses that are voted in by the people. Of course, it's messed up. But before, you have the House, voice of the people, the Senate, voice of the states. Remember, the state legislatures were appointing the senators, and then the vice president, as president of the Senate, couldn't vote unless there's a tie, but they're supposed to be there to debate on behalf of the executive branch. Three different voices involved in the lawmaking process. All three have a say. Two of them have a vote. What it does is it creates this system where there's less centralization because you've got multiple parties a part of it. When you centralize everything in only one thing, such as in a democracy where it's only the voice of the people, or in a dictatorship or tyranny where it's only the government controlling, one particular government controlling everything, and the other parts of the government don't matter. When you centralize things, it becomes a problem. Does that make sense? Everybody with me here? Warhamster, anything to add to that?
I haven't stormed out of the room yet.
Well, I definitely want to have Warhamster give a voice because as our relationship as friends has developed, his understanding of the importance of a republic has blown me out of the water. He really gets it. And so that's part of the reason why I kind of deferred to him for a moment. And hopefully all of you are Teresa says she's following. She's with us. Okay.
Well, my question for you, Doug, is, I just read up there that I was guaranteed a Republican form of government, and I live in California, and I don't think I have a Republican form of government.
So
why
how do
is
we fix
that?
it? How do we
Reynolds v.
fix it?
Sims.
Well, and now one of the problems are that the federal government not only is not guaranteeing that government, they've done the opposite. And Reynolds v. Sims, and I know that's on your mind, that is the biggest example of a violation of that clause. And for those of you who have gone through the Constitution with me before in the chat room, you know what I'm talking about. But for those of you who didn't, let's revisit Reynolds v. Sims. Reynolds v. Sims is probably one of the most important cases in the history of this country. One of them. I'm not saying the, but it definitely ranks high. And it went in the wrong direction. What had happened was when the federal government was created, got your House of Representatives, voice of the people, U.S. Senate, voice of the states. States are, remember, the state legislatures are appointing these guys originally. And the House is based on population. So the number of representatives, bigger the state, more representation. But the Senate, it's equal. 2 per state. Population has nothing to do with it. Okay, so the states go, okay, we're going to model our government after that.
No, what didn't that come out of the Great Compromise?
Well, yeah, the Connecticut Compromise, if you want to get specific, but yeah, the Great Compromise, Connecticut Compromise. One was the Virginia plan, the other was the New Jersey plan. And New Jersey plan basically said, hey, let's do it all by population. Virginia's the biggest state. Of course, they're going to love that one. New Jersey, much smaller states, going, whoa, wait a second. That means you can control everything. I don't think so. We think it ought to be 1 vote per state. See, at this time, they were talking about a unicameral Congress, though, at this point of the debate. They hadn't really, bicameral was in the mix, but they hadn't really made that decision yet. And so Roger Sherman from Connecticut says, hey, I got an idea. Let's do both. Everybody's like, what? How do you do that? Bicameral Congress. You give one House population to the population. The other one, where it's even Steven, to the states. It'll work wonderfully. And it did at first until we started messing with it. And
17th Amendment.
17th Amendment being a part of that. So now you've got the state governments going, I like that. Let's do the same thing. So you got your assembly.
Except for Nebraska.
Well, Nebraska, though, did that in the 1930s. They actually did originally have a bicameral. But they changed it over in the 1930s for some strange reason. I don't remember the reason. But yeah, Nebraska's, I think it's just all that corn. But anyway, yeah, I should say the corn. It's the alcohol they're making from the corn. That's what's doing it. But anyway, you ever had corn whiskey? Like the backwoods stuff?
Oh, I probably have. I got some crazy uncles.
That stuff will wake you up. You'll be awake for a while. But anyway, and your sinuses will be clear too. But anyway, so you've got the states going, we like this. So state House of Representatives or the state assembly by the people, by population. State Senate, we're going to make it kind of like the U.S. Senate. So it's even Steven, but since we don't have states, we have counties. It's going to be based on the counties, 1 per county.
I see the redness in Warhamster's face getting redder.
I'm still trying to figure out where Doug Goes Woke came from. How did I go woke?
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious about that too, Lisa.
Anyway, while I'm waiting for Lisa's response, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Exactly, Tracy. Yeah, my grandpa used to do the moonshine in Arkansas. I've had that stuff, and I was a kid. Man, I
That'll put hair on your chest.
Well, in my case, I think I killed every opportunity to do that. But yeah, that stuff was fire water, fire water for sure. But anyway, so get back on the main path, shoot the rabbit, get back on the main path. So the states are saying, we like this, so let's do it the same way. So 1 per county, and they're going to be appointed by a legislature, just like the U.S. Senate is, but it'll be the county legislature. Now, the eastern states, the early states, had bicameral legislatures. I'm not sure at what point and which states decided they didn't want to do that. I haven't studied that deeply yet, but in the beginning, the early states had bicameral county legislatures.
Really? The counties did?
Yeah, they had
How?
two houses.
In the
Think that
county?
change things right now if that was the case? One house voted in by the people. Where did the representatives in the other part of the county legislature come from?
The cities?
They were appointed by city leadership.
Wow.
This
Wow.
happy hour.
I was wondering where you went. Hey, we're talking about Republican democracy. He needed a drink.
This is the one that gets me every time. Like I want to go seething. I want to storm out of the room when I read this one.
I'm going to
It's just-
join him.
We are so far from Kansas. On
I'm
this
going
one.
to join him.
He just pulls out the bottle and drinks straight. I've got Dr. Pepper. Thank you.
No, what a shock.
Yeah,
You have
my
to drive.
my
You have to
alcohol
drive.
consumption is all the Carlsbad Constitution class's fault. I drink once a week, and it's for the Constitution class in Carlsbad.
Yep, we'll take full blame for that. But our audience today has to, they got to take the blame for me having a drink an hour and 21 minutes too early. But I'll blame it on Article 4, Section 4.
Yeah.
Drove me to
Yeah.
drink.
Tracy says that they're a bad influence, and she put bad in all caps, like Jefferson would.
Y'all, you guys have no idea how bad things are on the back end. How bad we are of an influence to each other on the back end.
This is true. But anyway, back to, so now the states had this idea. Well, what changed it? So now we're going to find where this was violated. So Alabama loved doing it the old way, where the state senators were being appointed by the county legislature, one per county. Utah loved it. Most of the states loved it. But once the 17th Amendment passed, ratified, or kind of ratified, and then eventually did ratify, some of the states decided, well, if the U.S. Senate's going to change, we're going to change our state Senate. And so some of the states did change their state Senate to being voted in by the people based on districts, based on population. But most of the states didn't. In fact, in Utah's state constitution, it was in their constitution in 1890, whatever it was, that it would be one per county appointed. It was in their state constitution. And so Alabama was one of those states doing it the old way, and someone complained. Said, no, it's not very democratic. So the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government. Huh. Well, it's not very democratic, so we're going to sue. And it was the Warren Court, 1964. This isn't very long ago, folks,
What a shock.
on the grand scheme of things. This is within the lifetime of a lot of people I know. Almost within my lifetime.
All you had to say to me was Warren.
Yeah, Warren Court. That usually explains everything for most people. Judge Warren, the Eisenhower Republican who turned out to be one of the most progressive leftist pieces of garbage on the court in the history of the court. One of the most, not the most. I still think that there's a handful of other guys that still hold that
You have to consider
that crown, such as John Marshall. John Marshall Harlan.
Marshall's the king.
Marshall's the king.
You have to consider who put him there.
Yeah, Joseph Story is another. But anyway, so the Warren Court. So we're here. We got this case, and he said, and Warren Court says, guess what, Alabama? We don't think it's very democratic either. You have to change. The court requires it. You no longer can do it one per county. You have to set up districts based on population and have the people voting in your state senators. And since they had to do it, you know how it is with the federal courts. The federal court says one state has to do it, they all have to, right? So all the states were forced to get rid of doing it the old way and do it this new democratic way. Now, let's once again, federal judge, federal court case, Article 4, Section 4. The United States shall guarantee to every state in the Union a Republican form of government. That was violated. Doesn't say a democratic form of government. And I'm going to backslap every Democrat and Republican says, "Well, Republican democracy, it's the same thing." It's not. I'm tired of making that argument. I'm tired of having to argue that point. But nonetheless, it was violated. Now, real quick, just to give you an idea of how damaging this stuff was. Okay, so right now in our U.S. Senate, it's pretty tied, even Steven. Wouldn't it be nice if the Democrats didn't have such a stranglehold? Well, why do the Democrats have a stranglehold? Because the population centers are voting in all of these senators for the most part. Population centers, according to Jefferson and Madison, are from which tyranny always rises. So they made the republic the way they did so that the rural states would have a voice. And I hear, "Oh, you mean the slave states?" No, the rural states. Not all of the rural states were slave states, and they knew of it, and they expected within their lifetime slavery to be gone. The fact that it wasn't was a surprise to them. It wasn't about slavery. It was about rural versus heavily populated. Just figured I'd cut that one off at the hip right off the bat. But so you want the rural states to have as much of a voice, at least in one of the houses. Plus also, remember I was telling you debate is good. Two heads are better than one. You want them to be different from each other. This creates that dynamic. This makes sure that the senators are more, the rural representation is stronger. And then in the democratically voted ones, like the House, the population centers have a bigger voice. So we have balance. That's what we want, right? Balance. Proper distribution of power and balance. So we get our balance. So now let's go back once again. So the Republican form of government, I almost lost my train of thought. I just found it. You tried to dart off like that rabbit trail. And the states are now forced to change their way. Now, as that's going on, let's look at things. Let's use California as an example. I love using California example because it's such an extreme state that it really proves the point. So my first question is, if it was one state senator per county, would California's state senate look differently?
Yes, absolutely.
No doubt in my mind.
No doubt.
In past elections, when you look at the county by county election, here's what you typically see. Los Angeles, Sacramento, San Francisco, and places like that, heavily Democrat. The rest of the states, pretty darn conservative, pretty darn Republican. Not that I'm necessarily a fan of the Republican Party, but compared to, very good. Yeah, bring that up. Let's take a look.
California is red.
I disagree with that one.
Well, you got to remember the last few elections, there's no way we're in Riverside County voted for Hillary and Biden. And yet that's what they've got the last two elections. There's no way.
This one, even though I kind of disagree with it because I don't think that Riverside County's blue, this one looks a little bit more accurate.
Yeah, I would say the northern coast is red.
I would agree.
Yeah, everything north of like Santa Rosa is
they got
red.
San Diego. They got San Diego dark blue, and that's just not true.
Anyway, my point is that if it was one per county, the state senate would look differently. Now, so in other words, let's get rid of Reynolds v. Sims, go back to the old way of doing it. Now we've got basically two different houses in California. You have a Republican state senate, you have a Democrat state assembly. Then you get rid of the 17th Amendment. And when I talk about getting rid of the 17th Amendment, people say, yeah, but places like California are still going to put two blue senators. No. Not if you get rid of Reynolds v. Sims. You take everything back the way it's supposed to be. Now, you've got two houses that are different from each other. They're going to have to compromise. So you're going to get one Republican and one Democrat from California in the U.S. Senate. How many other states is that going to be the truth? Where if it was one senator per county, their state senate would change from Democrat to Republican. How many? Oregon, Washington, Colorado, New Mexico, Illinois, Virginia. New York, Connecticut, I think would. Not Massachusetts. They're too crazy there. I apologize, to everybody in Massachusetts.
It's really sad about Massachusetts too, because that was the original. I mean, that's where that was the cradle of rebellion.
Well, yeah, you're right, but also that's the cradle of something else too. Virginia and Massachusetts and Connecticut, Northern Virginia, Maryland, not so much Maryland, but Connecticut and parts of New York and Massachusetts. That was the cradle of what? Puritanism.
Mm-hmm. Yankees.
Yeah, the Yankees. So you're right, but also you're right.
So,
but
Doug,
in a different way.
Before you get too far away from Reynolds v. Sims, I had something I wanted to add.
Sure,
so
please.
The dissent in that opinion was written by Justice Harlan, and he spends the entire time arguing that making a 14th Amendment argument, and never mentions the fourth, Article 4. It's not in the dissent. They weren't even arguing about the right thing. That's infuriating.
Well, that's just like the natural born citizen, arguments too. Same thing, right? It's about where he was born, not who his parents were. It amazes me how far off they get.
And we're gonna hear an awful lot. In fact, we already started here in the last 24 hours. But once again, they're going to bring up statehood for DC, saying Montana should only have one senator. They're going to pull all these things out. They're going to talk about packing the court. That's everything that's going to come out of yesterday's leak. And I was watching NBC last night, and they were talking about it already.
Because they want democracy. Why do they want democracy? Because that puts them in full power. And then once they have their democracy and then they get full power, then what happens? The democracy dies. It becomes an oligarchy.
I think I've asked you this before, Doug, and I'm almost sure that you said yes. But have you seen the John Birch Society thing about the political spectrum?
Yeah. Matter of fact, when I first saw it, I was already talking about the political spectrum in almost exactly the same way. And I was trying to figure out who stole it from who.
Right.
Yeah, it's very good. It's right on target. And it's almost exactly the same way I describe it. Mine has evolved a little bit over time because I've come to the realization that there is no right. There's a left, but there is no right. I mean, there is a right, but they're the anarchists and pure democracy and all that jazz. The left, because when you look at the spectrum, the Constitution is dead center.
And for you guys in the chat, I just posted the link.
Dead center. So is the Republican Party to the right or the left of the Constitution?
To
the left.
To the left.
So how are they right wingers? They're to the right of the hard left, but they're still on the left. They're just basically lefty light. But they're still to the left, in my opinion. There is no right wing.
I'm not going to bring up my opinion on this one.
Yeah, yours is an up and down thing.
Well, it is, and I am going to bring it up then because I always thought it was silly to mention something as complex as geopolitics in a one-dimensional, right versus left. It's at least two dimensions. So I flip the axis, where the top is total tyranny, the bottom is total anarchy, and we're about 15% up. We want to be about 10 to 15% off the bottom, and that can drift to the right or the left depending on certain things. But that's how I would draw it up. But I don't have the graphic art skills to make that pretty, so I've never been able to present it to you in a logical manner.
Moderates and centrists aren't moderates and centrists, Colt. They are lefties that won't admit it. I am a classical centrist. Constitution's dead center.
And I call myself.
The problem is everything's gone so far to the left that Constitution looks like it's far right. All right, let's continue before I run out of time here. Then it says, and shall protect each of them against invasion. What is an invasion?
People coming in that are not invited.
So an unwanted encroachment would be included there, right?
I would say so, yes.
All right. So are we not being invaded at our borders with illegal aliens?
Why, Mr. Gibbs, yes, we are.
It is their job to protect the states against that invasion.
And it's an impeachable offense because they are not following
Right.
the clear letter of the law.
And then it says, and on application of the legislature or of the executive when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence. In other words, federal government can help with domestic violence, but they're supposed to get the permission of the legislature or of the executive, the governor, if the legislature cannot be convened. Is there an exception? Yes. Go back to page 7 of your pocket constitution if you have this one. Article 1, Section 8. Congress has the power to call forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. Suppress insurrections. So domestic violence, they don't need permission if it's insurrection. What is insurrection? Insurrection, according to the 14th Amendment, Section 3, is when it's against the Constitution. Not when it's against government, because according to the Declaration of Independence, you have the right to and the duty to alter or abolish your government if it's not following the Constitution or it's despotic, tyrannical, list goes on. So who committed insurrection? The January 6th Patriots or the crazy people in Seattle and Portland and Ferguson and Baltimore?
The city of Chaz.
Chop. I like chop better.
Now, but what is insurrection? I mean, is it just, okay, because I use the 14th Amendment version, but what do the founders think of it? Well, insurrection, if you're committing insurrection, first of all, that's treason, right? So if you commit insurrection, then it would make sense. You would then be tried for treason and convicted of treason, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to the Whiskey Rebellion. Whiskey Rebellion, armed protest against a federal tax. Whether or not that federal tax was right or wrong was not the point. It was against a federal tax that was, according to the government, totally constitutional. It wasn't a good tax, but it was constitutional because it wasn't a head tax. It was a indirect tax. But nonetheless, armed insurrection went on. Did you know that after the Whiskey Rebellion was over, 2 of those people were arrested, tried, and convicted of treason? So a violent protest against a constitutional activity by the government would be considered insurrection, according to the Washington administration. So I say that the insurrection and the trials for treason goes way beyond Chaz.
What about the Insurrection Act under Adams? Did they misdefine insurrection?
Not necessarily, but I think they tried to better define it, and I think the Whiskey Rebellion was a reason for that. You got to remember, Adams and Hamilton were not as let me rephrase this. They were more about it being against the government, not against the Constitution. But now, Insurrection Act, which part of it are you questioning?
Well, just
Do you have it in front of you by any chance?
No, I don't. Just the overall definition.
Yeah, I've got it.
They were, my recollection is, basically anybody who spoke out against Adams's.
Oh, you're talking about the Alien and Insurrection Act of
Adams, of 1798.
Yeah. Well, here's
right?
the thing about that. Let's talk about that. Their claim, it's not necessarily totally the truth. Their claim, and this goes back to what I said earlier, their definition was against the government, not against the Constitution, first of all. Second of all, their claim was, hey, we've got traitors among us with the Tories. We've got to do something about it. So let's target them with this Insurrection Act. But did they use that Insurrection Act only to target the Tories? No, they used it to target anybody who spoke out against the Adams administration.
Colt wants to know what a head tax is.
Head tax is a direct tax, a capitation. In other words, per person tax, directly per person. The founding fathers in Article 1, Section 9 did not allow direct taxation by the federal government. Federal government could not tax you as an individual. So there was no federal sales tax. There's no federal income tax, no federal per person tax. You could, however, be indirectly taxed by the federal government, such as through a manufacturing tax. You tax the manufacturer. He then takes that amount of money. He applies it towards the price. You're paying the tax, but it's indirect because it wasn't directly on you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Does that help, Cole?
Cole, does
Okay.
that help?
Yeah. All right. So I thought we would get to Article 5, but we didn't. But we got there. We just didn't start reading on it. So we'll get into Article 5 next week. Article 5 is the amendment process. So here's your teaser. I will answer the question on whether or not a convention of states is a good thing or a bad thing, or neither.
And
Next
I'm
week.
going to have a very strong opinion to share. This is one of my favorite subjects as well.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot, and the things and you know, it's funny because I do have my favorite things, but the things that I do the most discussions about tend to be the ones that create a lot of discussion between people, a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, a lot of controversy, and convention of states definitely one of those topics. Thanks to our good friends from the John Birch Society, largely.
Yeah, I got in a debate with a couple John Birchers about a month or so back. Held my own pretty well, but their distaste for the convention for convention of states blows me away because they support the Constitution, but they just happen to ignore one of the original 5 articles. So, it doesn't apply. No, it absolutely applies. It's a fix to a lot of the problems we've been pointing out.
Darren, were you not here when I was talking about that corporation theory deal? He must have got here late.
No, he was here.
Okay. Well, and they're stirring trouble. What's wrong with you? All right.
I told you. Let it rage. Let the debate rage.
Yeah, it's still raging.
That theory is never going to die. It's going to be with us forever until we can prove it wrong.
Well, I think I have proven it wrong, but you don't necessarily agree that.
Well, no, I will say that you gave me something interesting to think about when you talked about the corporations weren't really formed until the early part of the 20th century.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was a nugget of information that I hadn't considered.
There's a bit of wiggle room on that definition. It really comes down to, and I hate doing this, but the legal definitions of corporation were slightly in play before that, and then that kind of feeds back into the counter argument. But the official first corporation in the United States was U.S. Steel, even though we actually had
corporation too. Is it's one of those words that's kind of like other words in English language. It does have more than one use.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. But it's the way it's being used.
And so just because it's used for municipal corporation in the Act of 1871 does not mean it means business corporation.
Yeah, I've always thought the best argument against the 1871 theory was the fact that, okay, if the United States no longer existed, the Constitution was no longer intact, why did they bother making amendments after that date? Well, how would you amend a document that's not even in effect?
Well, and the other argument would be, well, then how is it that when Colorado, Arizona, Alaska, Hawaii became states, why does it not say then in their statehood documents that they are becoming members of the corporation?
Yeah, that's the other good argument.
You know, if that was the case, wouldn't they be proud of it? Wouldn't they put it out there? Because the left tends to do that on certain things.
Well, the documents would be null and void. They wouldn't actually be states if they were based on fraudulent representations.
Right, exactly. What is your take on becoming an American state national? That's another interesting one, Cycle Dude.
I don't think we have the time for that today, there, Mr. Gibbs.
Well, I will say this about it. First of all, be careful with that word national, because national means that you love the government, a strong central government. Second of all, if you become a sovereign, because that's basically what you're asking, to save the union, that's like jumping out of a car and then standing in front of it to stop it. I'd rather stay inside the car and apply the brake. That's just me.
What I would say on that is a lot of the people that are proponents of the sovereign citizen and related movements, they're awfully good people that are very similar at heart to constitutionalists like us. I mean, I like these people in general, but at the same time, there's also a lot of grifters out there that are selling these expensive seminars teaching you about this stuff, and their followers have a tendency to be tax rebels and end up in jail. Quite a few of them. So it's it's a direction I would tread very, very carefully, because I do know several people who have been locked up for decades, for having these views and trying to act upon them.
Right. Okay.
Whether they're right or not, they are in jail.
Well, and the thing is, let me say this: when it comes to being an American state national, is also saying that your state is your government. You're a citizen of your state, and your state is a citizen of the country. That's basically what they're trying to say. And so the only way to do that is to divorce yourself from being an American citizen, become a state citizen, and that's where the sovereignty comes in. And when it comes to sovereignty, becoming a sovereign citizen, it is technically sound in the sense that if you completely divorce yourself completely from the system, just like, say, an Indian tribe has, or it was never a part of, they are a sovereign tribe within the sovereignty. You can do that. Just recognize that you, like that Indian tribe, will have to provide your own your own everything. Because if you're not under the Constitution, you don't have the protections anymore. You are your national defense. You are your whatever. So just be aware. I mean, it means you're completely separate. You're out of the system. It means you don't have the protection of constitutional ideas and principles and all that, because you're outside of it. You're no longer in the contract. Just be aware of that. And then on top of that, you can believe that you're sovereign all you want, but if the IRS doesn't agree, just saying. And that's what Warhamster was saying. Exact same thing. It's just I wanted to put it in another way there. But because the reality in today's world is this, and this is just the reality, and I'm not trying to say that there's no hope or anything. This is just reality. He who has the biggest guns and the most gold makes the rules and is in charge typically. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And we're trying to change that to get back to the Constitution. But, just be careful in how you do this, because they got bigger guns. They got more gold. Just saying. All right, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure as always. Appreciate you. So how you feeling, Mr. Ron?
Good. I'm a little tired today.
A little tired?
A little tired. A little worn out. I went to the Dodger game on Saturday, and I stayed up really, really, really late. And it's still I haven't fully recovered yet.
Went to the Dodger game, stayed up late. Yeah, it typically happens when you hang out with a bunch of felons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I did get to see Kershaw break the record, so.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that guy. Isn't he like a softball toss pitcher? I can't remember.
Something like that. He's got a world championship ring, something that the Angels don't have.
Angels do have one from 2000.
Didn't he lose on Saturday?
He has a World Series ring, something the Angels and the Padres don't have.
All right, so you got the Dodger fan, the Angel fan, the Padre fan.
Who's in first place? Who's in first place right now, Ron?
He got into baseball.
The Dodgers.
This could get real ugly.
I believe the Padres are tied for first.
Okay,
and they're listed ahead of them in the standings.
Tied for first is different than being.
But I look at the standings and it has the Padres listed first. So to me, they're in first place. And
whatever. That's
That's-
because you're in San Diego, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to put them first because the proximity of the fan base is local. that
I
are
looked
going
on
to make them
ESPN.
first.
I looked on ESPN. So your whole excuse is gone.
Whatever. The
All right,
Dodgers
Dylan,
don't
I
have.
got to go to San Juan Capistrano to teach a class, so I got to get out the door. It's been always a pleasure. Yes, Colt, you're correct. Speaker of the House doesn't technically have to be a representative. And actually, to be a representative in the House of Representatives, you don't technically have to live in the district that you represent, just as long as you live in the same state.
Yes, Joy. The Angels do have a World Series ring, and that was in 2002. That was like 20 years ago. So the Dodgers have one from like 2 years ago.
Long drought before that, though, huh?
Yeah, but even then, I mean, they still have like what 7 in total.
Yeah, well, first you're not even a California team like the Angels are. You're a New York team who came here, because it
If
was
you
the
would,
place to be.
whatever.
Angels already had a team back in the 1800s. There was a team that went by the Angels.
The Angels is a gay name.
Well, now you're ripping on the Bible. I don't know. I think that's good. I think that's a pretty good note to end this on. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, it's getting ugly. I'm out of here. All right, see you guys later.
All right, see you later.